Welcome back. For those of you who are new around here, I'm Christina Steeran with Bullseye Investments, where we help busy professionals invest in their future when time is scarce. And today we're going to talk about something every investor loves to talk about: distributions. By the end of this video, you're going to have a really great understanding of what distributions are and where the money for them comes from. And we're going to answer some of your most common questions that we get about distributions. So let's dive right in. So before we get into answering your common questions about distributions, I wanted to take a minute to talk about what distributions actually are. We know that in a multifamily apartment complex, you have residents who are paying rent every month. And the majority of that rent goes towards covering expenses, paying off the mortgage if you have one, paying any bills you might have, paying for the cost of the staff that you have there. All of those expenses that come with owning and operating a multifamily apartment complex. But what's left over after that is excess cash. And it's that cash that's going back to you, the investor, in the form of a distribution. Distributions can happen annually, they can happen monthly, they can happen quarterly. It really just depends on your sponsorship team's preferences and what they think is best for the property. And of course, all of that information can be found in your PPM, or private placement memorandum paperwork. For us, we tend to do distributions quarterly because it's a slightly larger chunk of money, and 4 times a year seems to really work for our investors. So it's important to note that that distribution payment amount, those payments are part of the return on investment projection that you were given when you were first looking into this deal. When you attended the webinar and you looked at the information in the private placement memorandum, it's included in there what they think your total return on investment is going to be, and part of that is made up for distributions, and the other part of that comes from the increase in the value of the property. So when you sell the property, what you make above your initial investment. So of course, the most common question we're asked is, when do I start getting all of this money coming to me? I want those mailbox checks. And the answer is, it really depends on the property and on the structure of the investment itself and on the type of investment it is. Your sponsorship team will generally let you know when you should begin to expect distributions based on the property and how it's doing. Generally, one of the key markers is your occupancy should be at a certain percentage, so the property is considered stabilized, but things should also be running smoothly enough that they're not needing that extra cash flow to put into new renovations. So with a yield investment, you would expect to receive those payments far sooner than you would with a value add or a hybrid investment. And like I've mentioned before, you might not even expect to receive distribution payments for really, really, really heavy value add deals, because you're putting your money in them and looking for that return on your investment all at the end when it goes to be sold. So of course, the first question is, when do I start getting distributions? But the second most common question we get asked is, how am I going to know when they actually start? If you're just giving me an idea during the webinar, the answer to that is, generally, your sponsors are going to let you know during their monthly updates when you should begin to expect to receive distribution payments, which is why we encourage you to read them and reach out with any questions you might have. So they might also send an email either right before or right after those distribution payments go out, just to give you a heads up saying, hey, they're going to hit the bank in the next day or so. Let us know if there's something wrong. Or, hey, we've sent them out. Definitely check your bank account and let us know if there was some sort of error or issue, or if you have a concern. Those those are the big ones. But here's another question we're occasionally asked. Some investors want to know why we don't just write them a check at the end of the hold period after we've sold the property. And the answer to that is actually, we as the sponsors want to do the best by you. We want to get you as much of your initial investment back as quickly as possible. We realize that you're busy and you've got your goals to meet, and the sooner we get you that cash flow back, the sooner that you can take that and reinvest it into another opportunity, creating even more cash flow for yourself. And that brings us to the most important question. How am I actually getting this money? You generally, depending on the structure of everything, you have two choices. Number one, you can do an ACH deposit, and that's just fancy terminology for a direct deposit into your banking account. You might be familiar with them because a lot of companies do payroll that way. I know when I was a public school teacher, I provided my banking information to them, and they automatically deposited my check into my account for me, which meant confirming it, and confirming your distributions is as simple as going onto your banking website and logging in, or going onto the app on your phone and seeing if that deposit is hit. The other choice is an actual written check. And while this is becoming a lot less common, just because mobile banking and online banking has become such the norm in these days, some investors still choose to receive actual paper checks. All right, I hope that information answered any and all questions you have about distributions. If for some reason it didn't, drop me a comment below with your question so that I can answer it, and maybe it'll turn into another video to help somebody else out, because if you're asking the question, chances are 3 other people have the exact same question. And if you found this really helpful, awesome. Also let us know, like, subscribe to our channel, or tell a friend about it. In case everyone is wondering, it's super breezy out here while I'm trying to record my video, which makes it extra difficult because I want you to be able to hear me, and I don't have any fancy stuff.